Hello, welcome to the Tenfold AI Podcast. I'm Heather. That's Matt. Hi, Matt.
Hey.
Hey. This podcast is, as always, sponsored by Promode.ai, a human-first AI native platform that does marketing communications in a super slick way. And this is a podcast where we talk about how to get a 10x return on your AI investment, how to make really good AI decisions. 26 is the year of data architecture, so we talk a lot about that. Yeah, teeing it off. We have some fun things we're going to chat about today that we were kind of recapping. I kind of want to start with your rage bait.
Okay.
That
Let's start
you
with
got
the
this
rage bait. Let's just
sun
go
in
right.
your eyes. So I
Yeah.
rescued you this morning, unbeknownst to me, from a rage bait session on LinkedIn, which I can totally get wrapped into myself. What did you see that incited such rage?
So, all right, I'll just read the very beginning of it. It says, I just spent an hour trying to verify a statistic that doesn't exist. And the person's talking about GEO. I don't even know what that means anymore, but it's effectively like being found,
Yeah.
an AI search, right? Being recommended by a large language model. But anyway, the poster goes on this rant about how this LLM fabricated a statistic. This sun is killing me. All right, there we go.
I know, it's right in your eyes.
So she's going
There
on
you go,
about
scoot
how,
back.
yeah, there we go. There we go. So she's going on about how this statistic was fabricated and just complaining about this like endless hallucination loop. Uh, and then in the comments, everybody's like, yeah, I had the same thing happen about some archery thing. I had something happen about this, about that. And, and really the thing that like makes me entirely irate about all of this is just the absolute lack of understanding that like, dude, you're using Chat GPT. Like, what do you think this tool is meant to do? Like, this tool is meant to give you a thing that you want. That's like its only purpose. That's what makes it so believable. That's what, I mean, the whole, even like the entire AGI discussion, like, oh, we're a couple of years from AGI. It is all really based upon these like inference chats that do a phenomenal job of discerning the thing that you want and giving you a thing that you like. And then that just becomes this endless loop. But when it just bothers me so much that when the technology is brought before the court, it's not the LLM. It's not the technology. So if this lady was using their system to where she put all of her sources into it, like if she really wanted to study AEO or GEO or whatever the case may be, she would know who the like most authoritative voices, where are the labs that are studying this thing. And that would be loaded in somewhere. The source data should be pre-sorted, pre-filtered. You know what I mean? Yes, that's stuff just like bothers the shit out of me because it's people like using a lawnmower to give themselves a haircut and then complaining about how bad the
Yeah,
haircut is,
totally. That's a great analogy. And what's so frustrating is I've talked to people who sound like that in person, at networking events and whatnot. And they're usually, they're not working directly in AI, obviously. They're just, they're salespeople or business professionals of some sort. And they'll say things like that. Well, you can't trust it. Well, it hallucinates. But the frustrating part is that when you suggest the proper tools and workflow for that use case. Like, okay, you were trying to do some fact finding. May I suggest Perplexity? Like, use Perplexity. Like, it's free, or you can have a paid version too if you want. And it cites the sources so you can verify that the information is accurate. And it's like, they don't even hear you. Like, well, I just like Chat GPT. Do you? Because you're telling me you don't. It hallucinates. What are we talking about? And it is, I don't know, is that lazy thinking? Is it like, no, I expect this. Actually, I just had a weird thought. This is wild. Do you know back in like the 70s when the microwave came out, how
Oh my God.
revolutionary that was? Like it blew people's minds, the microwave. I remember my parents talking about it, my grandparents when I was a kid, and it was a not so distant memory to all of them. Just the microwave was like, I mean, it was like AI. It was like the AI for kitchens in the 70s. It revolutionized cooking. And what the funny thing is, all these microwave companies started publishing these cookbooks for microwaves. And I've looked at some of these because they're fascinating, and it's like, make a whole turkey in your microwave. Like really pushing the limits on microwave capabilities, making stuff you should never and would never make in a microwave today. But it's almost like people are viewing ChatGPT as the microwave. They're like, well, how do I make a Thanksgiving dinner in here in 5 seconds? It's supposed to be easy, right? So maybe that's just part of the hype cycle is, I don't know.
I want to keep this, and we got to keep the microwave analogy going. I had a very, very close, like my longest time friendship I've ever had. I've known this guy since I was like 8 years old. He grew up in a very much, and I mean, mind you, this is like the 90s, Heather. I mean, it was way before Whole Foods or organic or anything. I mean, there was an underground movement of these people in the early days that were up.
I think I grew up in what you're about to describe.
Okay. Yep. Yep.
Like co-ops where you would buy bulk foods and
Yes.
whatnot and
Yep.
whole
Like,
baking and yeah.
yep. No antibiotics, I mean,
Yep.
the whole nine. And so he still to this day has this thing about microwaves, like won't use a microwave.
Yep. I grew up with a lot of those people.
Yes. Yeah. Like there's some sort of magic that's going on in there that cannot be good.
Radiation. They think it's like sending out radioactive waves and giving you cancer.
Yeah. And so for the longest time, I was like, yeah, this makes sense. Like, what is going on inside that thing? I had no idea. I mean, fast forward to like probably 10 years after that, I met this other friend as I, got older, and she was a legit scientist, like works in labs, does research and stuff like this. And so I was asking her, I was like, what's going on with a microwave? Like, what is that? And she's like, oh, it excites water molecules, and then water molecules spin around so fast that it just heats up the stuff around it due to friction. And that's it. There's not like alien laser beams going into this.
I'm going to glow in the dark in 50 years.
And I think that AI and large language models are a lot the same way,
Yeah.
where what's going on inside of it is fairly simple and innocuous, but just done at a large scale, there's these cool emerging things that occur. Like in the same way as a microwave. I mean, to like heat up a cup of water without a microwave is, I mean, the fact that this can turn that into a 30-second process instead of a 10-minute process of getting out a pot and, the whole nine.
Yeah.
But I think it's a really similar, I think it's probably one of the more appropriate analogies for AI today is a microwave.
I'm going to see if I can find one of those old microwave cookbooks. It seems like something you could find at like a thrift store or something. I think my mom had one years and years ago. But yeah, it was hilarious because you look at it and you're like, yeah, no one would ever try to make a chicken cordon bleu in the microwave. That's retarded. Okay. You can't do that.
My gosh,
A
yes.
souffle in the
Yeah,
microwave.
and it's just not good. I mean,
No, it's
sometimes
not.
fast
Yeah.
is not better, not
Right.
better.
It's a tool, just like ChatGPT is a manifestation of one kind of technology, just like a microwave is the manifestation of that technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that makes it a tool that you can use that, and just like any tool set, like it may or may not be the best for the job at hand. If
Yes.
you're doing a complex workflow, if you need deep intel on a niche, don't ask ChatGPT. It doesn't have enough training data on your niche to deliver high accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not what it's for.
Exactly. Well, and here's the thing. This is the inherent problem. So when you make a call via an API to a large language model, first off, there's different models that you can use, even from OpenAI. There's different models that all have these like crazy subspecialties, things they're really good at, formats that they like, formats that they don't like. But at the bottom of all of it, what I'm saying is like all of those models independently do have the training data. It's not for lack of training data per se, but it's just that so much of their firepower is taken up with just guessing what would make this person happy. Just at the base of it. And that is what made ChatGPT. That was one of the foundational decisions that was made in what we now know as like present day state of large language models was if there was a training step that occurred. So we have all of our training data, and then we have this other set of training data over here that is all of the stuff that people have put into these models. And then that training data becomes inference, guessing what this person would want. Okay, this person wants a stat about this thing. I mean, that model like a dog on a bone, that model locks into, I need to deliver a statistic to this person that will satisfy the point that they're trying to make.
Mhm.
Obviously, a huge problem, not
Yeah.
the tool for that job.
Yeah. Well, I think 2026 will be the year that most companies who are, have any interest in being on an edge, having an edge, I think most leaders will really start getting this if they don't already.
Yeah.
And something else you and I were talking about is like in development, you use the term one shot.
hmm
I think that can connect here as well. So what is one shot?
Yeah. So one shot is just a term that means an entire workflow is done in one run. So this could be, yeah, any kind of automation. It's just done in one step. There's not this iterative process. So I think a good way to explain it would be like the opposite of a chat experience. So I'm sitting there going back and forth. I'm like iterating, but through that, the problem with that is that through the process of that iteration, the user is making concessions to the model and the model is making concessions to the user. And that's a difficult problem. Now, a one shot workflow where it's like you have all of your data assembled, you have your preferences, your output format, all of these things are predefined. And
Yeah.
then it is like one click, and you're just choosing how much of the thing that you want, or where
Mhm.
you want it to go, or what format. So you're basically setting all of your conditions on the front end. So in the example of pro mode, this would be I want 3 web pages. One of those I want to be an FAQ. One of those I want to be a case study, and one of those I want to be a blog post. And here is all of the source data that I want to go into it. In a one shot workflow, you have predefined your format for all of those different web pages. In the case of promo, this would be just from your current like human created content. So whatever that design is, you've predefined that already. And you've predefined your authoritative data sources. So the whole thing is just done in one run. So you never end up with these concessions being made where the person is bending themselves to the model is bending the truth to the person.
Mhm.
The entire workflow is basically calibrated just to run exactly how you want it. The thing
Yeah.
that makes one shot workflows difficult, it's not an engineering problem. I mean, it is like it's challenging engineering, but in practice, that's all solvable. The problem with one shot workflows is finding people who have a process and know what they want, to have predefined formats, to be able to articulate or send an example of things. So if these things could be articulated or there's examples that live somewhere, you can build these elegant one shot workflows where you'll have, I mean, tens of thousands of words of content, of pitch decks, of sales proposals, all just being mapped into this like one click work. That's really where I think enterprise value is captured. We've tried to articulate like how do you know where there's going to be substantial hours saved, like where you're actually seeing measurable ROI on AI adoption. And we've talked about this in terms of data. We've talked about it in terms of customization. But I think in just the most basic first principles term, the MIT study where 95% of AI pilots failed, I think that gap gets closed with one shot workflows that are just perfect, like absolutely perfect. Every time 100 people can get into the thing and the whole workflow works the exact same for everybody for just like an insane number of use cases.
Yeah, yeah, you brought up a really good point there that the biggest obstacle isn't the engineering, it's you have to codify what your workflow is. Like you have to have preset formats. You have to have some stakes in the ground on like where is your data? How are you going to, architect that data? Like you have to agree on a lot of things internally. that can be a huge struggle for a lot of companies. I know I've been a part of many automation processes like sales workflows, CRMs, prospecting, and whatnot. The hardest part is like telling that engineer exactly how to architect that system. Like, what should the triggers be? Well, hell, I don't know. I guess we have to know now,
Yeah.
because if you're going to set it, you've got to know.
Well, so okay, we've obviously set up a CRM, together. We've iterated on it, made changes to the process, and so I don't want to give the impression that the articulation of what you want in one of these one-shot workflows needs to be intense. And so I want to use an example that you and I have encountered with just managing our CRM. So I've built a ton of CRMs. I've never been in one using it every day. This is the key difference. So I just like one recent example in my mind is we had some leads. We're like, okay, well, what do we do with these? And you said something to me that was really interesting. I don't want these in the CRM yet. Like there's something that needs to happen before these leads cross over into this territory. And you've articulated it in a way of like, I want to get into the CRM and be like, I want to have a view of like, what do I need to be working on? I don't want just like fuzzy maybes inside of here. These need to be high probability before they end up in the CRM. So
Hmm.
that right there, the ability to just like you and I could have a conversation about that workflow and you could tell me why you want that workflow that way. You don't need to like provide a flow diagram, but just
Hmm.
that particular thing right there is like, okay, I want to log into this CRM and just see 6 things that I should attend to today, no more than.
Mm.
And if somebody has the ability to articulate that, even just that little bit right there, you can create some amazing AI workflows and automations.
Yeah.
And even like we like through email messages yesterday, you and I were talking about how much cold outbound emails written by AI just totally suck. I mean,
Hmm.
so garbage.
Yeah.
And so, but we were brainstorming some ways of like, what is a way that we could use AI in this process but not have it write that email because that email always sucks. But what is a
Yeah.
way? Like when you go to send that next follow up, what could AI do just to make that a little bit better? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But it's those types of things. You certainly can't approach it in a way of like, I want AI to sell everything for me, just like run my company for me. It's like, well,
Yeah. Just push
come
the
on.
green button.
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
going golfing. Yeah, I had some thoughts on that, but I think they've escaped my brain. I know what I was going to say. I think part of what I'm seeing that it's just these conversations are so helpful when we sit down and do a podcast because things start to kind of crystallize in my mind in a little different way because we're so busy all week long and then it's like let's pause and think about this. I think one thing I'm seeing is in a lot of especially our mid-market marketing director set client type is they confuse strategy for workflow. So, example, client says, well, can promo do this? Because this is how we do it now. We create a blog and then we create 2 social posts a week based on that blog and then 1 email newsletter, all with the blog at the center of that, campaign. And we're like, well, why do you want to do that? Well, that's our strategy. That's our digital marketing strategy. No, that was your workflow.
Yeah.
And it existed that way because that is the easiest workflow to execute outside of a system like Pro Mode. Like if you're going to use ChatGPT and Canva and, a social scheduling platform, for instance, if that's your tech stack, then the most efficient workflow is let's first create a blog. That's going to be our cornerstone content piece this month. And then we'll create 2 social posts and an email newsletter spinning off of that blog. That was your workflow then. But that is not a strategy attached to a business outcome, which is the definition of a strategy. Like it's got to have a goal. Like I
Yeah.
think what AI is revealing and one-shot platforms like Pro Mode are revealing is what you thought was your strategy was actually your workflow and nothing more. And it sucks probably, but that's okay. It sucks because you're only one person or you're a two-person marketing team for a $100 million construction company.
Yeah.
You know, like you're doing RFPs all day long. You don't have time for robust content, broad reach content. Like it's okay. But now it's time to like really learn about strategy. Like what in a perfect world, blue sky, what would move the needle forward for this company? It's probably not your existing workflow.
You just triggered some more rage bait for me. So, yeah, obviously, I've been in on a lot of these conversations as well. The thing that will absolutely send me into a tailspin is when I'll hear that exact thing that you just said. We make a blog post, 2 social posts around it, newsletter. This is our. But then to try to dig a little bit deeper, well, tell me, how are you like choosing the topic for this blog post? Where does that come from? And they're like, well, SEO, keyword research. And I'm like, oh my God, here we go. And so then I was like, well, imagine a world where an LLM that has been trained on fucking trillions of lines of HTML, imagine this SEO part is just done and you could choose anything. What do you want to talk about? You could talk about anything. I mean, you could do an expose on the janitor's dog. And all the SEO will be there, naturally woven in. I mean, like, this is like the idea of a keyword being somewhere is solved, like has been solved fully. Can we please stop fucking talking about SEO keywords? It's solved. It is the easiest problem for an LLM to solve. It was solvable 5 years ago.
Mm,
There's so many opportunities now. You don't have to do these reports. You don't have to do the keyword research. Name anything. Name the funnest thing that you can think of. What is a topic? What is a customer problem? What is a testimonial? What is like a copy and paste one kind word out of your Google reviews and like
yeah.
that stuff will put me in an early grave.
We're in this such an interesting like transition time because on one side it's like you hear all of these naysayers talking about AI and how they don't like robot content. I don't like, I want humans to do the writing. I want humans to be in charge. And it's like humans have not been steering web content for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Do you understand this? Like humans have been directly responding to robots via keyword research.
Thank
And
you.
like that's the problem. That is probably the biggest like philosophical shift that digital marketers have to make is that in the AI space, yeah, you're using agentic AI, you're using bots, like it seems very futuristic and very robot forward, but it's actually a much more human first web experience that you're creating because of technology like natural language processing and semantic analysis, right? Like this is the technology that's fueling your ability to be more human than you've ever been.
Exactly.
Like speak like a human, talk about what matters in your company, and the technology takes care of the delivery of that information. Like writing a blog based on keyword research is never like I've never read an amazing blog that I could tell was keyword stuffed,
Yes.
which if you're in the mid-market and you're paying $1,500 a month for SEO, your blogs suck. You don't like your blogs. Like they're not written for you. They're written for the robots, and that's what your agency tells you.
Let's just take a moment to look at the most read prolific blog in the history of blog posting ever.
Good old Seth Godin.
This is his post. This is his post. This is December 17th's post. I mean, not a fucking iota of thought around SEO. It's the most popular, most read, most prolific 20-year running blog that every marketer who goes to SEMrush and thinks that that's a strategy looks up to this guy. Well, why the fuck aren't you doing it?
I ran into an old agency owner last week that I know very well. I'm not going to say who it was. And he was so proud that they discovered 2 new keywords that they should be using in their web content. And now they were ranking for a couple of top keywords. it was sad.
This has to die. I mean, I just hope this all has to die. It is the most mind-numbing vanilla bullshit ever. I mean, you brought up a really good point. I mean, I've never connected the dots, but like, yes, where do you think those SEMrush reports come from? Machine learning models. Like, it is the
Right.
AI has been driving every single piece of web content for years already, far before any of you wieners ever heard of Chat GPT. And at least now we have some, this is it. This is like this is the one thing I love about LLMs is that humans have sort of been like shackled to these machine learning models in the form of SEMrush reports, in the form of like Google Analytics. We've been shackled. We didn't have comparable fire to deal with it. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like if you went back to the 1850s and everybody's got muskets and an army shows up with tanks, you're like, what is this? You know, and that's
Mhm.
sort of how marketers have had to live is you have two or three massive players who had access to AI in the form of machine learning, and you didn't. And so all you were doing was just reactively responding to these like multi-billion dollar companies
Yes.
AI. And it's just like, okay, whatever you say, boss, I'm going to get my keywords, each one here. Like that's all you could do. That's all you could
Yeah.
do. And now marketers have large language models. And so now like, okay, the keyword part of it, now this is just taken care of by the large language model. You build it into a system, one shot, everything is taken care of on the SEO standpoint. And now you can like break the shackle. We now have comparable firepower. So now it's like, who's got the coolest ideas? That's all that matters. Who
Mhm.
has the coolest ideas? And now to have the ability to execute it on it and all of the like bullshit SEO is all taken care of, we should be excited about that. We should be very eager to break the shackles of boring internet.
Yes. Wouldn't that be nice?
Mhm.
So, speaking of workflows, I've seen and heard some chatter this past week. So we are 6 days ahead of Christmas right now, and usually, what happens this time of year, starting in about mid-December and going until maybe the second week of January, is crickets. Like usually, you're not getting responses from prospects. You're certainly not getting sales calls. You're getting punted to January, maybe in Q1. Let's talk next year. Um, and you're usually getting a lot of out of office replies in your email efforts. I've seen and felt a big difference this year compared to almost any other year. 2020 might be an exception because it was chaos. Then I was taking sales calls on Saturdays and Sundays in 2020. Everybody lost their mind. But yeah, this year it's like nobody is missing a beat. And I was on TikTok the last couple of days and seeing a ton of creators talking about just that. Like, what's going on? Like, we had a 2-hour Christmas party at the office. Aside from that, it is business as usual, tighten the ship. And I'm hearing some chatter that it's fear of job loss
Mhm.
is um, you know, a huge catalyst to that. And also some layoffs earlier in the year means, companies are short staffed, teams are picking up a lot of slack as it is. What do you think about that?
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting, yeah, that the economic conditions are such that I think it's going to have a real forcing function for AI literacy. That works. I mean, we've talked about this for going on 18 months now is like we need to really be persistent. I mean, like our biggest issue is AI literacy and
Mhm.
experience. People have to have had some experiences where they just are unimpressed with it. And as that literacy increases, I think then if as that X crosses to economic conditions where, people go from pilots trying different things to then really asking, what does a tool look like that would save us, you know, 5,000 hours over the course of a year. What does that thing look like? And I think we're there. I think people are starting to understand that there's different things in the market, but certainly the forcing function will be the actual need to save hours. It will go from we need to be thinking about AI. Every company should have an AI strategy. So we'll just kind of throw a few tools in a few departments, let people play around with it. And that's good. I mean, that was good for the last couple of years. But certainly I think what you're noticing is economic conditions on the ground are having people really ask, where is there actual value to be had in this thing? So I'm here for it. I would agree with you that the conversations that we have been having are much more around, yeah, hours saved instead of, well, what can this thing do? We got a thing over here that does this thing. We got a thing over here that does that thing. Well, like
Yeah.
the shift from like AI that does a thing that I'd really never thought about before, and that's really interesting to me, so I want to try it, to like, all right, how can this be running in the background? And how can we
Hmm.
like actually get some hours saved out of this thing?
It would be fascinating, and you would nerd out so hard over this. I wouldn't have the patience to actually do it, but I think it'd be cool as shit to take like a time lapse screen recording of the day of like a marketer, or pick any, tactician, and just watch, like, how many clicks are they making to complete a workflow? How many windows are they opening? How many different pieces of software are they dipping into? What's the redundancies? And I'm sure there's like ergonomical digital consultants or something who get into this, which would be kind of pretty awesome. Just to like see where is, I mean, I think there's totally space for an AI consultant who's doing that. Like, assessing workflows actually. Like, don't just tell me your workflow. We're going to record your screen. We're going to see what your day looks like, all these different factors, and then prescribe to you, here's the new way forward.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. Yesterday I started to do this.
You did what? Stop.
Yeah, I mean, it was like very unofficial, but I was, I've been like doing all of these use cases. I mean, really, basically, anytime now that I have to do anything for our company, like anytime I need to publish something for promote or do anything, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to record it, and then that'll be a use case that we publish. And so I was just kind of thinking about how can we beef this up? How can we make it more compelling? And so I was realizing when I record these, I use the transcript, I upload the transcript to then create the content to share it. Well, on the transcript, there's timestamps. And so when I'm actually recording me doing the thing, I'm doing it in real time. I'm editing it, I'm adding images. So like the raw recording is anywhere from like 15 to 20 minutes. I edit it down to like 5 to 10 minutes, but in the original transcript, there's timestamps. So the amount of time that it takes me to do the thing is recorded in the transcript. So like, okay, I created 3 web pages and it all is indicated in the transcript because I'll say, and I click approve. And so that's like, boom, that part of it is done. This is so funny that you brought this up. I
Favorite.
put into a table all the tools that would be used for these things. And I assumed that, like, let's say that our competition is ChatGPT plus all of the distribution tools. And so, I just put into this table all of the other software that you would need. So you would need like WordPress, you would need Divi or Elementor. So like these are tabs opened. It's a copy and paste over here. It's a formatting all of your H2 tags and things like that. And then for social, it's like getting into Sprout, copying over into this thing, putting getting your imagery over into that, pulling it from Canva, et cetera, et cetera. And so then I started, when I would upload the transcript, I now have it calculating workflow time for workflow time based off of this table that I made.
That's brilliant, and it's something we've wanted to do for a long time. Just make that comparison more clear on the time side and also the headcount side. Like, if you're talking about an agency executing that workflow, that's 4 different humans, almost always. A copywriter, an SEO guy, the web guy, and the graphic designer, and an account manager, and
Yeah.
the client.
Yep. Yep.
And you're talking about email approvals and project management tools to check the boxes throughout the agency team. Like, no comparison.
It's crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
It's crazy.
it is so crazy. But I just think what's happening right now in the workforce, people who are grinding it out the week before Christmas and fearing for their jobs. And it's like they are so many of them are so fatigued by new. They're fatigued by software and clicking and copy pasting and clunky workflows. And it's like, no wonder you're not getting creative, you know, exciting ideas from your team. Like you're living in economic hell and forget about if they're 25 years old and have any hopes of buying a house. Like this is so much stress and pressure on on a person. Yeah. I think the pressure will like companies will have to find a way to relieve that pressure. And we are hopeful that part of that solution includes good AI adoption with human first platforms and tools that they can work within, you know, peacefully.
The hype is just overwhelming. I can't stand it. But yeah, you bring up a good point. Like, I think people will be hungry for something boring, effective, just done kind of thing, and just the spattering of tools that each do a thing that you need to sit there and iterate on, open a new tab. You need this tool over here to properly use that tool over there. Like, does not feel more efficient the way that it's being approached today. But still from management, like they're saying, well, you're using AI, so I expect you to be like you need to be doing the work of 10 people because you're
Yeah.
using AI. But like nobody, it's like, yeah, it's AI, but god damn, it's not more efficient. It's 10 different tabs still that need you to sit there and babysit all 10 tabs, going back and forth with some chat and iterating and da 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 da. And yeah,
Yeah. Well, hopefully good company leaders are not saying things like that. Maybe in the early days, but hopefully most, C-levels, execs understand enough about, they've talked to some AI consultants, they've been to some workshops, they've, been around enough to know, okay, there is a learning curve here. It is not an overnight switch. A free tool like ChatGPT is not going to radically transform our company because it is not fair to have that expectation on a team with no plan, no guidance. Like you didn't hire AI engineers, most likely. You hired, digital marketers, you hired PR people or whoever your team is. Like that is their core competency. And you really can't expect them to know everything about AI and
yeah,
on their own time.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay, let's transition. Let's talk about AI security a little bit. We'll get to security eventually, but we'll do some fun things on the way there. I've been listening. There's a podcast. I think you would really like it, Heather. It's called The Last Invention.
Hmm.
I've really been enjoying it. It is how do I say this? It is, I don't know if you've ever listened to the show Radio Lab or something like that, or even there was do you remember the show where there was like those podcasts that were kind of like murder mystery type things where it followed a single story,
Yeah.
like making a murderer type thing in a podcast format?
Yeah. I never listened to any because I'm not a murder mystery kind of gal, but I know
Yeah.
what you're talking about.
Okay.
It's almost more like an audiobook, I think.
Yes, exactly. An audiobook broken up into individual podcasts. So this podcast, The Last Invention, is really cool because it's made by these investigative journalists, and they're basically laying out like, how did we get from Alan Turing to where we are today with AI? Who are all the key players? What are the key events? And it's really cool because like where I'm at in the show right now, we've gotten up to when I first became latched on to artificial intelligence. And so it's fun. It's because it's like, I mean, prior to this, there was like the only content that you could consume was from like the researchers. I was like, okay, this is kind of dense and boring and fragmented, but this is like a very digestible version. So it's been fun Because for me, it's like a walk down memory lane of all of the things that I recall that like captured my fascination. The coolest thing for me in the history of AI development was a project called AlphaGo. And so AlphaGo came on the heels of, I think, DeepMind. Google's DeepMind had built an AI that beat Gary Kasparov in chess. Do you remember? This would
Oh,
have
yeah.
been in 97, something like that.
Oh, okay.
Late 90s. I could be mistaken on that. So then the next sites that this researcher had, Demis had set his sights on the game of Go. Now, the game of Go is an interesting problem because in this game, there are more possible combinations on the board than there are atoms in the universe. Uh, okay, so
Is that possible?
right, so even a lot of the professional level Go players, when they try to articulate why they made a certain move, they really can't. It is almost like they describe it as a subconscious like impulse to make a move. It's like how
Wow.
many data sets are being calculated. It's almost like they can't be calculated consciously. It almost has to
It's
be
like
done.
quantum
Yes,
level.
exactly. Yep. So how they had trained an AI to win at chess was brute force. We're going to teach you all the logic in this game. And then every single move, before that AI made that move, it would actually fully calculate every single eventuality in real time. And that's like super inefficient. But the game of chess a little is a lot more rigid than the game of Go. But you cannot take that approach with the game of Go because it would take thousands of computers, hundreds of years to be able to calculate every eventuality. It's just impossible to do. So you had to kind of like give an AI almost this intuition of the game.
Hmm.
So they had an AI that would play Go. They did a copy and paste, and then they just had this AI play against itself. Thousands, millions and millions of games a day. It would just cycle through, it would play against itself. And so this is unsupervised learning or self play, they would call it. And this was like never heard of. This technique was crazy. And so there was a really cool moment, and I found the clip of it, and then I want to talk about it a little bit more, and then we'll talk about how it relates to safety. So this is the famous Move 37 when an AI is playing against like world champion Go player.
From the Google team was talking
Look at
about
the guy placing
is
the
this
chip.
kind of evaluation
Got him.
value.
That's a very surprising move.
I thought I thought it was a mistake.
Well, I thought it was a quick miss, but
A clicko. And if we were online Go, we call it a clicko.
Yeah, it's a very strange.
Okay. So if you saw that guy there, he was putting that chip there, and he's like, not a chance that this goes here. And so as this match was going on, the researchers at AlphaGo were talking amongst themselves, and they're like, it's broken. It's got a bug. It isn't working. And all of the pro level Go players said, no human has ever made this move before. I don't have no idea why the AI made this move. The human that that AlphaGo was playing against left the room at that time. It's just like, what on earth is like kind of freaked out, right? Well, this move 37 it was never part of like the brute force training, and it ended up being like the pivotal move that won this game. And so
Hmm.
it was talked about over and over again. Like the researchers are like, why did it make what appears to be a really bad move? But then at the end of the game, the human resigned, and this move 37 was this pivotal moment. So what like the move 37 revealed was that we don't know what's going on inside. So we did all of these millions and millions of games against itself. And then these emergent moves came out of this that nobody had ever thought of. So it's not hard coded into the model in the way that it was for chess. So AlphaGo introduced what's called the black box problem. And the
Mm.
black box problem is simply We don't know the logic that went into this move, but it ended up being the right move in the end.
Okay.
Billions of calculations going on in the background, and we have kind of like very little clue as to why this move came out, but it was the right move, and it emerged from this high volume mathematics going on in the background.
You know what I love? I love when like human history, like giant events, inventions, moments, I love when it just like culminates in this tiny little seemingly, you know, insignificant thing, like the moving of a piece. And then it like sets forth a new human era. I think there's something like so poetic about that,
Yes. Yeah, it gives
you
me
know?
goosebumps. It gives me goosebumps
Yeah.
thinking about that is just and like the people working on this project were from all different walks of life. I mean, they were philosophers, there was a neuroscientist. I mean, the number of computer scientists in the room was relatively small compared to these other just thinkers. So it was very much just as much a philosophical problem as it was a programming problem to solve.
Yeah.
So move 37 is the moment in which the black box problem emerged, where we realize this is powerful, it's right, there's something emergent that we don't understand underneath the hood. In practical terms, for people who use AI for productivity or for anything, how does this manifest itself? Well, one of the ways that it manifests itself is this problem called lost in the middle.
Mhm. You've talked about this. Mhm.
But this is an example. They have this like gold dock. And so basically what they're doing is they're putting a little breadcrumb inside of a prompt. We'll just use prompt for common understanding. So we're going to drop this golden dock and see what we can retrieve from the model on the back end of it as a way to kind of figure out, we don't know what's going on inside of the black box, but how can we get something predictable out of the back end that we want? Oftentimes, where people will make a mistake is they'll actually give too many details in a prompt, like too little or too many details, or the structure of the prompt can have a really adverse effect on the quality of output. So, and that is just simply because, like, if we're looking at the top of this U-shaped curve up here, we would say that this is like the beginning of the prompt. And so the model is orienting itself towards the task that I need to complete. Then typically towards the end of the prompt, it is like, how do I present this thing to my user? But in the middle here, there's this problem where it all gets just totally fuzzy. So if an AI system needs to be maximally accurate and maximally consistent, this is a huge problem that needs to be overcome. Honestly, nobody really knows how to solve it. It is just in the same way that move 37 was the right move, but we don't know why. There is just something that goes on in the math where, in the middle of a big prompt, a super specific prompt, in the middle of that, for some reason, the models just kind of like fritz out. So to give you an example, like if let's just use a blog post as an example. So at the beginning of our prompt, we say, okay, you are a blog post writer. You are writing on this topic. And then in the middle, you start to feed in some of the data and the statistics and maybe the research that you want it to do. And at the end, you maybe tell it like what voice you want it to write in. What's the word count of this thing? Well, if you're providing all of these details in here, it's immediately attuned at the very beginning that I am a blog post writer. But then let's say in the middle here, you feed the model a bunch of research about, like, I don't know, skincare or something like that. Well, the model's attuned to being a blog post writer over here. Now all of a sudden you're feeding a bunch of like peer reviewed studies about skincare in the middle of it. The model is essentially being like, well, what am I? Like, what am I supposed to be for you? And so it loses a lot of this context.
Mm.
here in the middle of it. Now, so any questions here before I jump to the security of it?
So the lost in the middle, kind of zoom out a little bit
Mhm.
and don't be afraid to get weird with it. Like, what do you think? What do they think? And what do you think is happening? Because the feeling I get from it as a person who is way less studious in
Mhm.
general than you are, um, like the impression I get is that there's some kind of like quantum computing magic that's happening, and it goes, there's clarity on the engineering side for part of the way through that workflow or that exercise, but then there's this kind of blind spot to the developers or the engineers where they're like, then it just does its thing,
Yeah.
and we don't like. Is that some kind of do they think that we're tapping into some, like, quantum superposition kinda
Yeah,
thing there?
I think okay, so
Like, I listen to with Joe Rogan, but I don't read a lot.
okay, so what's going on here is it's the model's attention that's what's going on. So you might give it a prompt and you can't really read what's in here, but it doesn't matter. But let's say a part of the prompt has the model looking through its training data in this red section. And then if you add anything else to the prompt, you're kind of asking it to attune to the green stuff over here. And then there's another section of its training data that's the yellow stuff over here. So
Mm,
what you're basically asking the model to do is to jump through all of these like scatter plots of information spaces and
mm,
create a tight connection. And but what happens is that now where we get weird. So like the technology really does mimic the way that human brains work. I mean, it's a neural network, right? So that's very similar to how our brains work. The difference is that humans have the ability to jump concepts much easier than these models do. So what was the example that you and I we were talking about the microwave, right?
mhm,
Um and the microwave being this new technology. We were talking about cooking a turkey in a microwave. And so if you were to just take all of those concepts that you and I discussed together, because now we have my neural network plus your neural network plus this topic, we were able to jump around to like Whole Foods people who are afraid to use microwaves, cooking a turkey in a microwave, that whole experience being somehow related to this emergent AI technology. We have the ability to hold that in our minds through storytelling. And so for us, like a story is more multisensory and it's like we can jump these associations much easier. I mean, it's like kind of what stand-up comedy is, if you just think about a comedian is standing on stage and just like making you think about things in the way that they're thinking about things. And if they can convey that idea well enough, they're forcing you to have a thought or connect concepts you've never connected before. And so
yeah,
that tension of a stand-up comedian making these like bizarre connections you've never thought of, it creates a tension in you, and the release of that tension is laughter.
mm, mhm. Well, it's like the LLMs, like, they are only making associations based on words that have been turned into numbers. Like, that's the language of the LLM, are these number sequences that represent words, but when humans are reasoning and, talking to one another, like, we have language, but then we also have an amygdala that is kind of our emotional epicenter, and so we have emotion, and comedians are great at, like, this thing feels kinda like this thing that seemingly have nothing to do with each other.
Yes.
Like, an LLM would never pick up on how these things are similar, but Louis CK can take you right there and connect that emotional piece.
Yeah.
It's why LLMs, I'm sorry, not good at analogies.
No, yes. Perfect
Like,
example. Yeah.
yeah, analogies and even, like, I play around with injecting different comedians' voices into our brand messaging, like Tim Dillon. I love his, irreverent but poignant, intelligent but silly. I love the line he walks. And when you ask it, ChatGPT to give you something in the voice of Tim Dillon, it's always like this kind of like two-dimensional analogy where you're like, I see where you're going with that, but it's not quite there.
Yeah, you nailed it, Heather. You nailed
Do
it.
I get it?
Yes, you get it 100% because it's like if you only have heard of Tim Dillon through the headlines of whatever controversy he's involved in at that time, that LLM output would be convincing to you. You've listened to enough Tim Dillon to know like this is garbage. And why is that? Like when Tim Dillon says something and you hear it and you'll feel something in your sternum or wherever in your body you receive whatever thing he's saying. And you're like, he's right, but I don't know if am I allowed to think that that's right? Is that even appropriate for me you start having this multi-sensory experience that
Yeah, it's
sort of
challenging.
yeah, it extends beyond the language itself. It extends beyond the words that he's saying. It's what those words really provoke in your body beyond just your like prefrontal cortex.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that is just because it the associations are just it's story and to us and to story invokes emotions evoke a bodily experience, and so the number of associations that we can jump to and from super quickly because we have multisensory experience is just far more than a pure language could
Mm-hmm.
ever replicate.
Yeah, but LLMs are good, ChatGPT anyway, pretty good at replicating certain comedians, like Mitch Hedberg.
Yes.
Pretty good. And maybe that's because, Mitch Hedberg's what made Mitch Hedberg who he was, like his, you know, trademark was his cadence.
Yes.
Like his cadence of speech, almost like a haiku kind of rhythm. And that is a pattern that ChatGPT can pick up and deliver pretty well.
Absolutely is. Yeah, Mitch Hedberg's set is it's a mathematical formula. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's not, and I don't mean that to like discredit it
Minimize it.
as
Yeah.
lesser than. I mean, it's an amazing, he was a like linguistic mathematician of the
Yeah.
highest order, of the
Yeah.
absolute highest order.
Economy of words was always 10 out of 10.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Such a good example. Nice. Nice.
It took me a minute to get in the flow today, but
Yeah, no, that was like
it's
very
fun.
solid. Okay, so now let's turn this. Now let's talk about safety, or not safety, but like security.
Security.
So generally, like for the most part, like kind of most people building in the AI space today, their response to this loss in the middle problem is to throw a more powerful model at it. Okay, so if you throw a giant like reasoning model at an entire task, this loss in the middle, the curve becomes slightly flatter, right? Slightly. But again, it it's this curve will always be noticeable with Tim Dillon because you know Tim Dillon. And if
Mm-hmm.
somebody knows their stuff, this curve will always be there and it will just
Mm.
bother the shit out of you. If you know what's going on with whatever you're doing, this will always be apparent.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is that what happens when you throw a more high powered model at this? You run into a serious security issue because now all of a sudden you have a high power model and you are sending everything that you have at it. So all of the data, every API call, just everything about your company is being sent in one go to where if like anybody could look into like console logs and access what's being sent there, they see everything.
Mm.
But the curve is still there. So you have this huge security risk, but you still have this quality degradation. I mean, it's like seriously a lose-lose situation.
So is that what's happening when you build like a mega custom GPT?
Yeah, it's like, you know what this is? It is another thing that pisses me off is when like people have a giant super agent just running everything in an app and they give that agent a name. Like, this is what's like, if you, if you are,
I'm
if you're,
Pam from Pro Mode.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that is just like, this clearly this is like the territory of people that are like trying to cash in on the AI gold rush, is they just put a super agent, shitload of tokens, and they give it a name. And that should just, I mean, my God, that just
Now
bothers.
it's alive.
So yeah, that would actually be a good like gut check if you're looking at adopting an AI solution. Like if that thing has a name, you should just run for the hills because they're just hucking all of your data in one piece. That's
Yeah.
API. But
Mhm.
this is the really cool thing about good AI engineering is that it has this like inherent security around it. So that there's a technique, you would call it like a multi-agent workflow, or like mixture of experts, perhaps would be a term you could use for this type of thing. But the idea being, if there's a loss in the middle problem and it's inherent to large language models, any large language model, in order for this golden doc right here to always show up, if you put that needle in a haystack, if you want it to show up on the output, on the input side of it, it has to be handled in a super small context by separate agents. So in the case of Promo, we have 16 agents across the entire application. And some of those agents' tasks are just using the tiniest, I mean, the tiniest, dumbest model that you could ever imagine. But all it does is just extract fucking rows from a spreadsheet and then translates them and then passes it down to another agent. So here's the cool thing. The downstream effect is that a quality system where you have maximal throughput of your data is inherently super secure because it means that whatever data you're putting into that system about your company is never seen together. It's all abstracted and split. And, so if you wanted to launch a quarter zip company and you're coming after LL Bean and you don't want this information to get out there, well, I mean, you're going to have like that the whole workflow, if you're like building this marketing campaign to overtake LL Bean, your strategy is never seen together by any single model. It's just like inherent distribution. So everything is, I mean, like so partitioned, because if you want maximal throughput of data, you have to partition amongst experts. And so there's this like dual benefit of a system like this. It just by nature, the better quality throughput you have, the more secure the system is. Very like interesting emergent byproduct of good AI engineering is that it's like not receiving everything. Like no LLM is receiving everything. And most of our agents don't even have memory. Like it is, we were talking about one shot workflows. I mean, it truly is like one shot. That agent receives a tiny little segment of a part of your data, and that is never stored in a memory anywhere.
Mhm.
It's just passed down to the next expert. And so to be able to acquire, it would almost be impossible to reverse engineer what all of this means, what all of this information about your company means, and how to use it with nefarious intent would be damn near impossible.
Mhm.
But it's the dual benefit of like a quality, a well-engineered system and security really do live together in the AI space in a way that just hasn't before in technology. I mean, if somebody gets into your CRM, they got everything kind of thing.
Mhm.
If all of a sudden you've got like really abstracted database that is stored very securely in AWS, and you're just like taking tiny little chunks out of it that don't really mean anything by themselves, and you're spreading that across 16 agents that never see the full picture. of anything until it's ready for public consumption. That's like cool byproduct. It was fun to, we got to have a conversation with some IT guys yesterday who would like really get that. That's obviously something they're really concerned about. But it's like, by the time everything is seen together, it's in a form that's you're publishing. You know what I mean? So everything that went into it is never in the same place at the same time and never in a memory anywhere.
Yeah, I think going into 2026, we're going to have a lot more conversations about exactly that. I think security is consumers know a lot more about data security with AI than they did a year ago, than 2 years ago. So I think that will be a common thread along with like adoptability, like fitting into workflows, replacing workflows, and saving those hours in a safe way. It's that, benefit risk sort of equation. The conversation's going to get a lot more fun, I think, with prospects. Like the one yesterday, man, we were cooking with gas because that prospect set, there were 5, 6 people on the call. They were ready. They were ready for the conversation that we've been dying to have with prospects for a year and a half. And we didn't have to do as much kind of preceding education, laying that foundation. And I think I even said on that call, like, if we were talking a year ago, this would be a different conversation. But you guys have learned and grown, even though we didn't know you a year ago. We've learned and grown. This is where we are today.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be a lot more fun to those of us who've, had our oar in the water for a minute. Like we've eaten the shit.
Yes.
We've been been down some painful roads of educating, like, oh my gosh. But it's all necessary, it's necessary steps.
Yeah. We definitely has required stamina, but to see even the glimmer of understanding from folks, like even just the fact that like they're thinking in terms of hours, thinking in terms of like, throughput, thinking in terms of data. I mean, it was awesome. I mean, and how crazy is it? I mean, okay, let's be honest here. We've talked to like 400 marketers over the last year and a half. And how it's sad, but like, how rare is it to have somebody say, we need to be able to speak to this audience in these exact terms related to these exact products. And then we need to be like, we need to almost be schizophrenic, because when we speak to this audience about these types of products, we need to be hitting on ROI. We need to be like talking, whatever. And we need to be able to, we also need to talk to an accounting department about this thing. And I'm like, oh my goodness, where have you guys been?
Mhm. Yes.
Like,
And
where are
that
these
is
marketers?
that is strategy. Like that is brand and that is strategy. Knowing who are we talking to and how do we want to communicate to that crowd. Like the folks yesterday, they have, C-level decision makers in healthcare, and then they have end users who are, a different language. And they've got clinical language somewhere in the middle of those two personas. But they came in with that ask, like, how do we speak to each of our audiences in a unique way that is on brand? And that comes down to, a good prospect fit, like knowing better who our ICP is. It's people who do know that. It's people who know who they're talking to, why it matters that we speak differently to these guys than those guys. Let us worry about the how. Like we build that and we can, plug your data into that system and make it run. But you have to first know that that's necessary. And that has nothing to do with the order in which you're creating your blog and your social. And like those guys know that workflow is not strategy. Strategy is not workflow. And we're able to have that strategy conversation.
Yes, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
Cool. This has been a fun chat.
Yeah.
As
great.
always, happy holidays. This has been the Tenfold AI Podcast with Matt and Heather, sponsored by Promode.ai. We hope to chat with you in 2026. Hit us up and we'll see you later.
Bye.